The following Earth Angel Media presentation is brought to you commercial-free as a gratuity from the sponsor-producer named after the show. Please consider their message. Find other high-value shows listed at earthangelproject.com. Enjoy the show.
Welcome to Soul Decodes. Join us as we wander off the path to find the ideas that fascinate. We talk about spirituality, the mind, the ego, wellness, and hidden history with tips, travels, and tales. Charms for a better life.
Hello world and welcome. My name is Dr. Jolie Phillips. I'm in my studio here at the Treehouse on Phillips Island. It sounds pretty cool and pretty terrific, but what's even more than that terrific is I'm with my darling dear new friend, and she'll explain what that means. It's Sarah Tirri. She's an author and philosopher. And for those of you who have never met one of us or the other or both, I'm going to have Sarah explain to us how is it that we came to meet?
Okay.
And how is it that we're in this studio right now?
Well, it's very interesting. The universe put us together. That's how we met. But you were at a plant exchange with my friend Charlene, and you'd given Charlene your business card. And prior to that meeting, she'd been talking about earth angels a week earlier. And it blew her away and it blew me away. And when she described you and how much love and energy that was exuding from you, we both knew at that point that this was happening for a reason. That was prior to talking to you. Then I talked to you briefly. But I knew in the first 5 minutes that we've known each other before and that we were friends. And this is our first meeting in this lifetime. And I'd called you about a minor medical complaint. And that was the reason I was put in touch with you. But this is the reason that we're together doing this podcast. And it was great.
So thank you for that. How is it that, what sense did you have, about this resonance that you feel? Because you and I have only known each other for a few months, several months, right?
Yes.
So, but what was the resonance that you felt? Because have you ever done a podcast before?
Yes.
That you ran it?
I participated in it. Yes.
All right. But you've never done what we're doing, create a podcast?
Yes, but... Yes, I have created a podcast, yes. That's online. It's with a friend of mine, Frank, and we're beginning a radio station together.
Okay.
Yes.
So why aren't you helping me with some of this audio
stuff?
Oh,
Frank did all the technical stuff.
Well, I
can't do the technical. I'm just a writer and a philosopher.
Okay. Oh, yeah, I just said that. Okay. So you felt some sort of resonance, So
yes.
Is that something is that an acquired skill, or is that something that
that's a good question.
You think it was innate when you, were you born with this?
I think it's a skill I was probably born with. It's developed over the years. I understand that people come into your life for a reason, and I've recognized this before a few times in my life, and this was the same with you. Not everyone I meet I feel the same about. Everything happens for a reason, of course, but this Earth Angel conversation we'd had, and when you actually appeared, it blew Charlene's mind away, and it blew mine away and then you're from Michigan. I'm from England and Charlene's from South Africa. And how did these three broads end up within a few miles from each other? And that in itself just blows me away. Well, and then you're interested in the similar themes that I'm interested in. So that was very important.
So for those of you listening, this is really exciting because every time Sarah and I have wanted to talk about things, because we've had coffee before and we've had lunches and gatherings before, and we get into these, we get really close to these really super cool conversations, and we look at each other and say, no, that's got to be on, we got to capture that.
Yeah.
It's got to be on the podcast.
It's been a bit frustrating because we've got so much to say.
There's so much to cover. So we want to take you on a journey. This is about a soul's journey. So we have this, we had these concepts. We ran by some different ideas for what the name of the podcast would be, and what do people want, what do they need, and what do we want, and what do we need in terms of getting our messages out there. So you came up with soul decodes. What does that even mean? What is soul decodes?
Well, decoding a soul is analysing what a soul could look like and the reality that the soul exists in. So you could say you're decoding it. You're unwinding a mystery, because we only know what we've been told about the soul, and that comes via religion and spiritual seeking. And it is a mystery. And I'm still unravelling my soul and what it means to be me. I'm further along now. I'm 57 now. When I was younger, I was unravelling my soul and decoding my soul. So I think it's an ongoing, eternal journey.
What have you learned so far?
That my soul is magnificent. Yes, and yours, and everyone listening to this.
Okay, so take me on that journey. Now, I don't want to do the spoiler alert thing, but I've read 4 of your books, and I just finished the one that you graciously gifted me.
The Starside Prophecy. Yes.
And
you'll be part of book 3, by the way.
Oh my God. Well, thank you.
You're welcome.
So I know you've revealed a little bit in your books, but without spoiling the books themselves, what can you reveal about yourself in terms of the actual things you've learned about the human condition, about, like, it's been my position that we didn't accidentally happen upon this earth space. Like, we're here with some sort of an intention, whether it's we'll cover the options shortly, but I know that we're here for a reason, and I think everybody has to ask that question of themselves at some point. Who am I and why am I here? What are some of the things you've learned in your... You don't look 57. You look amazing.
Oh, well, thank you. That's very flattering. I've learned that we're creating our reality. This is not coming at us. We're creating reality with our thoughts. The low-grade thoughts that we have in our mind means we're running on a low vibration, and we will attract low-grade scenarios back into our reality. The moment you inspect your mind, control your thoughts, think loving, gracious, kind thoughts, your external reality will reflect that. So we're in control of our reality, participating in it and directing it. That is the biggest thing I've learned to date. Loads of other lessons along the way, but that would be the big one. I have all power and I'm creating this. It's not coming from anywhere outside of me. So I'm God in that. And that sounds... Yeah, you can get in a lot of trouble for saying that, but each of us is an aspect of God, creating in what I refer to in one of my books as a matrix of sorts, a quantum reality, where outer reality is corresponding to an inner vibration. Very, very powerful, because no one else is to blame for any of your suffering other than yourself, and that's a very important point. Very important for me, because I used to be like a victim. I'd blame people for my things that went wrong, and I realised this was all me. Very liberating.
Well, I'm glad you're liberated. So,
Me too.
But because you can't set others free until you set yourself free. So that's why I love
the truth will set you free. That's biblical, I think.
And it's that and more.
Yeah.
So
yes,
but,
right.
Sometimes I have people like they ask the questions like, if there's a God, why would a school bus drive off a cliff and kill all these innocent children? Those are difficult questions.
Have to be addressed, though.
But we have to come to terms with those, because it makes maybe it drives some people into their spiritual selves to try to seek understanding. At the same time, it's going to drive other people away from God, like away from spirit, away from that examination. They're going to say, there's no way that these bad, evil things can happen in the world. This is evidence that there's no God.
Yes, my brother's like that.
Okay, so can you cover the spectrum a little bit? Like in your years, you've met people all across the spectrum.
Perhaps I should say something about my background a little bit.
Well, what I was going to say is, you're clearly here in this place and time with all these wonderful insights. How did you get here?
Well, I'm a very old soul. I've had literally thousands of life. This is not my first rodeo. So that is calibrated in my consciousness prior to being born. And in this lifetime, I was a flight attendant for 7 years, and I travelled the globe long haul, and that exposed me to situations on this planet. And it's a shit show what's going out there on planet Earth. I mean, I know that you've been to Africa quite a bit, and I've been there too, and India, and I was 21 when I went, and I couldn't believe the amount of suffering, and I still have a little PTSD from those experiences. So I fully understand when people think, how could a God create any of this? Because you and I aren't suffering. We're here in beautiful Phillips Island, living our dream, right? But there's so many people not far from here who are not doing that. Part of the reason that they're suffering on this planet is because we don't understand God or the intentions of what God is. And religion has to some degree subverted us from that. So suffering is apparently, and I don't think this is permanent, but apparently a necessary affliction in order for us to wake up to the fact that we're dictating it all with our thoughts. The suffering that's happened in my life, and we can get into that later on, they were the moments of absolute clarity where I woke up, where I knew I was running the show.
So would it be fair to say that one of our common goals with this Soul Decodes project,
Decoding God,
is really for not only to decode what's going on within ourselves, but also maybe to share our experiences and insights. And maybe down the road even have people contact us with theirs so we can kind of have that discussion too.
Beautiful.
But ultimately, what would you say would be a desired outcome of this project?
Humanity's project, the desired outcome is heaven on earth, human flourishing for everyone. Okay. That's the trajectory. That's the world I want to live in, and that's what I want to help participate in and create. Okay. My personal project is writing about my experiences and my findings as a philosopher.
So I interrupted you a little bit. I want to go back to the, you were telling about your history. You mentioned flight attendant and seeing the world. You talked about...
Seeing suffering,
because I'm like you, because I had been to, by the time I was 27 years old, I had been to like 50 countries. Wow. So I get it.
Yeah.
And it wasn't...
You and me both.
They were not the garden spots.
No, I know.
They're not the garden spots.
Absolutely.
But tell me more about those experiences, because I'm interested in how you came to be who you are today.
Well, the experiences I had as a flight attendant, I flew out of London on a 747, and prior to getting the 400 in the series, we had the 200, and we had to stop in India to get to Hong Kong. So I found myself in what was Bombay at the time. It's Mumbai now. I don't think it's changed since then. And when you have an airport, obviously the airport has to be out in the boondocks, and it has to be far away from the city, so there's always quite a drive, like an hour and a half's drive, and that's when you're taken through the ghettos, basically. So I'd come from England, middle-class upbringing, been to the continent a few times, no real suffering, psychological suffering in my house, but I hadn't seen that type of suffering. And it was absolute squalor, and people's living conditions. I wouldn't treat my dog like that. And that marked me because it's the first time I saw the suffering. Now, back in the late 80s, when I was flying, we didn't have the internet. You couldn't just go online and look up a video of what it's like in downtown Calcutta. You either had to experience it or read about it in Encyclopedia Britannica. But seeing that firsthand, and everything that I was doing, I was staying in 5-star hotels, paying loads of money, shopping. So the contrast was great compared to this beautiful hotel that I stayed in, which was the Oberoi, compared to the average suffering. So me being introduced to the planet like you, and I didn't know this at the time, that was a stepping stone for me to question God. And the first book I wrote was called Is This the Best God Could Do? Because I'd like, fuck this shit. Who is God and what the fuck's going on here? Excuse my language, but that's how I felt. And it was seeing the suffering firsthand that catapulted me sitting here today.
So I don't want you to ruin the book, but if you can give me the character of the book without spoiling it, but just if you give me some of the flavors, I've already read it, but just from your perspective, what inspired you to write that book? Was it your first book?
Yes. It wasn't my first book. I'd written for children a couple of screenplays. It was my first adult book. It was my first polemic.
So it's your first adult book. What was your goal? What did you hope to accomplish? And did you accomplish it with the book?
Haven't accomplished it yet because the book's not on the New York Times best-selling list.
Okay.
That's where it's going. The intention of the book was to lay out alternative ideas of who and what God could be. In order to do that, I had to study the monotheistic God, the God of Abraham, the God of Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. I had to break down, and I think it was about 20 chapters, of what that God looked like and how it is an inferior way of understanding spirit and the nature of this reality.
Okay, so you're talking to somebody who's absolutely not religious. I don't know the world religions. Is this a book that would be beneficial for most people like me, or would I be more confused than that? Because I'm not that person that, like, I can't explain to you the differences between all of those religions because I don't...
There's not many.
Okay.
There's not many. There's tedious nitpicking of There's tedious nitpicking and talking about this dogma and that dogma, but the premise is is the same in all of them. It's a separate God. God is separate, and we call him different things. It could be Yahweh, Allah, or God. But those three religions, I call them the big three. And the idea that God is separate is the problem. Is this the best God could do? Was written to address.
So one of the themes in the book was this idea of monotheism versus polytheism.
Yes,
for a layperson, can you explain that to a layperson? Perhaps even somebody who doesn't even believe in God, right?
Yes.
Can you kind of cover that for us?
Yes. So monotheism is the belief that God is separate. Polytheism is the belief that there are many gods. And pantheism, which is what my belief is, that God is everything. And they're really, really important points because that will underpin your belief system. And we're all here creating belief system, whether we realize it or not. That's what we're all doing.
So when you say God is everything as a pantheist, does that mean if I live on, here's Phillips Island, right?
It's beautiful. I can see it.
I have these turtles.
Yes.
I have butterflies. I have alligators.
Yeah.
I have snakes.
Yeah.
Those
the
are
beautiful banana tree, that's all God. That's all a manifestation of God. God is everything, planets, the universe. We don't even know who and what God is on the other side of the veil. We don't know anything about where we came from. Well, a lot of us, some people are now because they're having near-death experiences and they're going to the other side and coming back. But we don't understand God. But whatever God is, he's created this entire universe. And I don't want to use the word here. You might, because I use that word, that's just kind of more conditioning. I don't believe God is male or female. It's just energy. And so you can see God manifest on earth in everything, but he's also manifest somewhere else. And we don't know what dimension that is. But whatever the source is, it's unbelievable. We're in a mind-blowing reality here. And that's the premise of the Starside prophecy, to understand the alternative of what God could do compared to the Christian version of God, is that we're born, we get one life, and we either go to heaven or hell at the end of it. And it's a very, very limited perspective. So that's the perspective I examined in, is this the best God could do? And... well, I guess you'd have to read it. I mean, it's pretty wild.
I don't want to throw you curveballs, but I'm just trying to understand a little bit more about what's behind the book.
Yeah.
Like I read the book and I got it, and that was good. But what's behind it? So the title says, "Is this the best God could do?" But a pantheist says that everything is God.
Yeah.
We are all God.
Yeah.
So by extension, the title is effectively, "Is this the best we can do?"
Yes. Yes. Yes.
So in my world, everybody's trying to be like, if I look at a flower out in my garden or an aloe vera plant or a mango tree or something, that tree is trying to be the very best it can be. That even the moss, the fungus, the mushrooms, everything
the flies,
growing,
the ants.
everything growing on Phillips Island is trying to be its very best, and it's also trying to find balance with everything around it.
Yes.
So,
well, it can't be its very best until it finds balance with everything around it.
what do you mean by that? Tell me.
Well, if you're going to be your very best, you've got to live in harmony and balance with your environment. Otherwise, you're not going to function at your very best. I understand that as a human being. And you're talking about mangoes and moss. But I would say it's the same on every level of the manifestation of God.
So how do we find balance when we turn on the news and we've got all of these messages that are coming to us, and they're filtered, they're parsed, whatever's on the corporate news. I don't even have a television. Like I don't even have cable or anything.
Best thing you've got going for you.
I don't watch it. I find it to be...
it'll lower your vibration.
It doesn't serve me.
Doesn't serve you.
And if it doesn't serve the
what
queen,
use is it? Yes.
If it doesn't serve the princess,
Yeah.
then why would I do it?
Yeah, great.
So,
yeah.
But
I think to be informed is one thing. I can be informed about what's going on in the news without getting emotionally sucked in to the negativity. So I can understand the world, but I'm dispassionate about it because I don't let the outer reality affect my inner vibration. That has happened to me, but I can see now that that's not good. So I choose my news sources, but I concentrate on making the vibration in my little bubble, Sarah's little world. That's the piece of the world that I have to attend to. I can't at the moment, I hope to one day, affect change in a great way in outer reality. If I had enough money, I would know what I would do. But at the moment, I can't, so I concentrate on this little bubble that I'm living in. So there's no point me going into some emotional crazy state because there's children starving in Yemen. I mean, I intend to help that situation, but I cannot lower my vibration because, and I'm not a use to my family, to my friends, to the projects I have underway. So I agree with you. I would steer clear of anything that's going to lower your vibration without you being able to change it.
I like what you said. Just creating an awareness where I'm aware that's happening and I'm going to permit it to not be part of me. I actually teach that with my clients, with my students. When they come to me and they want, if you're just the first person coming, like first person on a Monday morning or something, and we're interacting. First question I ask is, how did you find out about me? Second question, who are you and why are you here? Now,
how do people handle that question?
It's very different for most, because the first answer is always going to be, well, I'm Debbie, you knew that, and I'm diabetic and I have 35 pounds I have to lose off my butt, right? So, and I'll say, well, Debbie, here's good news. That's the easy part. And then Debbie will say, well, what are you talking about?
Right.
And then I'll explain to her. It's like, before we get going, 3 things I want you to know. Number 1, I'm not a medical doctor. I'm a PhD in holistic natural health and nutrition. I'm going to educate you because I look at you as a divine soul, as a beautiful spirit. And my goal is to help you see yourself as beautifully and as magnificently as I see you.
Love that.
That's my number 1 goal. So I'm not going to give you medical advice. You have to go to the medical clerics and the priests and priestesses and go to
doctors.
go to the medical doctors for that.
The shamans.
I'm going to speak to your soul.
Right.
So this is a connection between soul decodes and what I actually do, which is awesome.
Yeah,
so the first thing I always do is let them know to whom they're speaking. The second thing is I say, I'm going to encourage you to question everything. I want you to question everything from this point forward.
You mean reality at
Everything.
large? Everything. Capital E.
Everything.
Yeah.
Capital, not capital E, capital EVERY, capital everything. Because
it's pretty intense.
But the reason I ask them to question everything is because when we're children, we're told to, shut up and color, stay in the lines.
Gosh.
Cows are not purple, right? Well, my cows are. I look at it's like, what lines? I don't see lines, So my world is one about creating and not being told what to do.
Right.
I have one divine compass, and I follow that. So, but the problem is we have the messages in today's world are so incessant, and we tend to get all up in our brain, I call it the monkey brain, up in our
the Buddhists call it that.
Who calls it
the Buddhists? Monkey mind.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay. See, you know more than I do, but I call it the monkey brain. because people get all of this noise. And what do monkeys do? They monkey around, they throw poop, they scream, they rattle cages. You can't even get your homework done because it's crazy because the monkeys are just being monkeys, right?
Incessant.
But you can actually train them and condition them, but you have to have the discipline to do that.
Yeah.
So I teach my people that your heart is the number one brain. Your heart is your brain.
Yeah, your soul.
Your gut is
your intuition.
The checker. So your heart and your gut have to agree.
Yes.
And then once they agree on something, and you can tell because you have that good feeling,
Yes.
you get goosebumps, and you get
Yes.
these really good feelings that, yes, I'm doing the right thing for the right reasons. Then the monkey brain falls into order, and the monkey brain will execute.
Well, you're controlling it. The monkey mind is a computer, and your awareness controls that.
It is.
Most people get sucked into it, and I spent a lot of my life embodying the monkey mind without even knowing that I was in it. But I was able to pull back into awareness and witness the monkey mind, and getting the monkey mind under control, the monkey brain under the control is still a project that I'm working on. Doing very well on it, but it's necessary for everyone because there's two aspects, the heart and this computer brain that we have.
So I do ask people to question everything because there's so many things we've been told about ourselves, myself included. When I was a child, I knew I wanted to fly airplanes.
Yeah.
I mean, it's one of my youngest memories
Really?
was flying
Oh,
airplanes.
it's part of your destiny.
Well,
Well, it has to be. If it's pulling you like that, there's something in a pre-life, in the planning stage before this life. This was on the cards for you. For some reason, you had to know how to fly a plane, and that's why it felt so compelling, I guess.
and you're probably right. But what I found was, my family was broke. I mean, they paid their bills, but
Yeah, mine too.
I don't know how they did it. But I honestly don't know how they did it, but they did it.
Yeah.
But I knew that I couldn't afford flying airplanes to pay for it, so I had to join the military to do it.
Right.
I had so many people tell me, well, only 1 out of 40,000 people, only 1 out of so many number of people. Like I went to the Air Force Academy, and
The people that told you that it's 1 out of 40,000, were these people close to you?
well, yeah, but the thing is, I don't think they were bad people, but they were conditioned.
Was this your mum and dad?
Not so much as some other people close.
Right.
My mom and dad, to some degree, they were not cheerleaders, but they didn't discourage me either.
Right, okay.
Because they had
That
seen.
kind of sounds like my mother.
They had seen my capacity, but they also, I think the reason that people tell you the limiters because they don't want you to get disappointed. They don't want you to, so it wasn't like they're being evil or bad or bad people.
Yeah.
They truly do care about you, but within the construct of caring for you, they sometimes,
Yes.
don't get your hopes up because
Yes.
I don't want you to be let down.
Yes. Yeah.
Well, excuse me, but
Yeah.
being let down is part of part of life.
Yes.
So-
yes, it's actually quite destructive, but they don't mean to be. They think they're helping, but they're putting limitations on a child. But you didn't believe it because you did it anyway. But you could have believed that and thought, well, I'm never going to get into the Air Force. I mean, you could have believed that to be true and you'd become a school teacher or something, right? But something in you still felt compelled, like, fuck it, I'm going to do it.
Well, my position was, when somebody's got to be there. So let's just say it's 1 out of 4,000 people, because first thing you have to do if you're going to go to a service academy is you have to get a senatorial or a congressional invitation, right? Like you literally have to write a letter and petition your congressman to interview you. And there's this whole process.
Wow.
There's this whole process, but it's true. Only 1 out of some huge number even get to interview. So there's a lot of things you have to go through. But my idea was, well, who's going to go? If it's not me, who's it going to be? And what are they doing that I can't do? And how do I get that? How do I get that spot?
Great advanced self-questioning there.
Well, but the thing is, we'll talk about this in a different episode, a different podcast. But growing up, my self-image my view of myself was so poor, very, very, very dark. I danced with darkness almost my whole life. And in doing so, I had to come to this place where it's like, what is this darkness? Is this something that I have to overcome? Is this like a challenge that's put in front of me? But what happened is it really worked. It whittled away at my ego and myself, my self-worth, myself. So instead of offing myself,
a deer just ran past your head. Just when you were saying that, this deer came shooting out and went straight into the middle of your head. For those listening, I'm looking at Phillips Island in Tia Jolie's studio, and this deer just, when you said that, that's so funny.
So I have to find somebody in the audience that tells me, okay, what does it mean when a deer runs into my...
I know, we'll have to research that.
A deer runs into my ear. What does that mean? So what I'm sharing is that, like, I was very sad. I was a good person. Like I was a good kid, and I was kind and peaceful. Now, I wouldn't say I was peaceful. I was very angry, but I was kind. I minded my manners. Right. I was quiet for the most part, except for with my siblings. Then we were super loud. But the takeaway is that I didn't feel good about myself, and the only way I felt good was accomplishing things. I became an overachiever.
Right, yeah. Well, that's apparent from looking at your bio. It's like, holy shit. It's like you've had 10 lifetimes in one.
I know, right? And we're just getting started.
Just warming up.
Just warming up. But thank you for that.
Yeah,
but I think part of my journey has been that of getting past myself, getting past all of the negative self-talk, getting past the idea that I'm not worth it. Wow. And the darkness is still there sometimes, but I've learned to dance with it. And I've said, it's the old song, hello, darkness, my old friend.
Yes, yes.
I don't know if that's what they intended from the lyrics, but it certainly was applicable. Yeah. And now I just, I'm to the place, you can't give something that you can't give something that you don't have.
I agree.
So when I'm working with my clients, with my new friends that are looking for help, I couldn't help them until I helped myself. So I had to get to the point where if I couldn't, like I had to go through that depression. And truthfully, although I was never, quote, suicidal, like I was never to the point where I wanted to totally off myself.
But you flirted with the idea.
I thought of it, and then I said, just wait another day. And I made that another day decision like thousands of times. Right? So, you just wait another day, and then pretty soon you grow through it, or you learn to work with it.
That's fantastic. So how old were you when you started in the military? Because this is very sophisticated self-talk for one so young.
So I knew I wanted to go to the Air Force Academy like in 7th or 8th grade.
Yeah.
I was a jazz trumpeter, and my bass player was right behind me with the upright bass. And he had said that he was excited because his older brother was going to the Naval Academy, the U.S. Naval Academy. And I was like, the what? I'd never heard of it because we didn't have internet. We didn't
exactly. We're in the dark.
We're in the dark.
Yeah.
I didn't know there was even a Naval Academy. No. So I looked at him and I said, Is there one of those for the Air Force? He says, yeah, I'm pretty sure. And so I'm like, can you ask your brother? So the bass player...
It's so naive and sweet, isn't it?
It's like, I want to know if there's one of those for the Air Force, because I had never heard of it. Because I asked the counselor, they didn't know. It was like, yeah, I think
when you used to see planes fly around, did that fascinate you at that age?
I grew up close to Detroit Metro Airport.
Okay.
And I used to lay on my lawn and look up. I was in the approach. Like,
oh, right.
So it would fly right over top of me, right? But I found out that the Air Force Academy existed. Like, I didn't even know it existed, but I had to do all this. Like, there was no internet, so I had to go and he brought me an old catalog, so I had to get a new catalog. So I wrote to the academy and got a new catalog sent to me. But I did all of those things because I was exploring. And I think that central to what you and I are is if we have an idea that whether it's something we want to accomplish or something we want to do, like your idea of being like, I don't want to spoil the book, but basically, you were bounced around from many different conditions, like different living conditions, different relatives. You were just bounced around a lot.
Strangers,
complete strangers. But But ultimately, that made you very strong in a way. It was very treacherous, treacherous.
Yes.
But ultimately, you got to a point where you saw an opportunity to fly, to be a flight attendant, and that like opened up your world. And then you used that to build on. But so you had to go through all of these things in your life to they were stepping stones for you to be where you are now.
Quite.
Right. So same thing with me. Like, when I found out there's an academy, and then I found out there's this infinite number of hoops that I had to jump through, just to go to the academy. I could imagine. I didn't even want to go to the academy. I wanted to fly airplanes.
Yeah.
But the best way to fly airplanes was through the academy.
Well, the only way, because you couldn't afford the flight hours.
Well, I could have gone through there was some. It's called ROTC, which is like reserve officer.
Yes,
and
my friend's
like
son went through that.
But but there was a higher percentage. There's no guarantees, but there's a higher percentage if you went through a service academy. In fact, when I was a senior, there was such a deficiency in pilots that if you were qualified to fly, but you said you did not want to fly, you actually had to go talk to the colonel, full bird colonel, and explain yourself.
Wow.
So that's how much they wanted you to be flying airplanes.
That says a lot.
So I just share that with you because I think that if somebody's got something in their heart that they want to do, and we're going to talk about this in more depth, but you talk about creating your reality.
Well, some of it's in your life plan, and you write your life plan prior to being born. And these are what comes in. So you being a pilot, you've got a lot of roles you're playing in this life, but that was on the cards. And any ideas that you had, it might have been talking to your friend in 7th grade, but it was part of your destiny. And when you deal with the concept of monotheism and having one life and God is separate, you never consider that you have a particular destiny and you have talked about this destiny and entered into an agreement with the source of what is. So a lot of our seminal experiences, good or bad, were written into our life plan. So you caught up with what was in your life plan. And that doesn't make much sense if we believe we have one life, nothing much is going on, could be a bitch and then we die. But when we understand that we're evolving into something much larger than this one aspect of us, then it makes total sense to me that you caught up with what was in your life plan. And flying, I have to just tell the listeners, I have a private pilot's license, about 100 hours. And what it took for me to get through that, it just blew my mind. And what you've done, I have a slight inkling of what it entails. Just from this tiny experience I have. My husband's a pilot. He has about 20,000 hours. It just blows my mind what you have to do. And you're saying you were jumping through hoops, not just to be a pilot, just to get into the military. And it's unbelievable. It's a big thing that you required of yourself.
It was a good experience. People say, well, thank you for your service. And I get humbled because it's like, I feel like I was the one being served.
Oh, that's so sweet.
Because the opportunity I had, the things I was able to do. We'll talk about that another time. Yeah. I want to double back and actually have you speak a little bit because I want this to be valuable for listeners. But before I go there,
Oh, could we just get back to, okay, so you were talking about talking to Debbie. Debbie was this fictitious person.
Okay, yeah.
And the questions that you ask her, can you just tell me those again? The first one?
I always ask the question. Now I'm all over the place. Okay, for those of you listening, we don't have any scripts here. We are literally freewheeling this. We've got our little tables next to us with our sips of water or coffee or energy drink, and we're just totally freewheeling this. Yeah. So if there's a topic that we double back to...
we'll double back on everything.
We'll try to double back to everything. If we don't get it today, we'll get it on the next podcast. Lovely, yeah. But we're going to definitely... We want this to be an experience for you. We want this to be... We're in the process of learning about
each other,
truly.
Yeah, getting to know each other.
I've been looking forward to this for months.
So we're forming a friendship with everyone else listening. Well, everyone's listening to us, building our friendship.
And what's interesting is for somebody listening to us right now, you would think that we've known each other since we were little girls.
Well, we've known each other for centuries, millennia.
but what's fascinating is like, I don't think people, like listeners, can comprehend that we literally just met.
If you and I look at the total time that we've spent with each other, it's probably no more than about 7 hours.
I think that's accurate.
Yeah.
And some of that was with other people.
That's right, in more formal situations.
I think just one-on-one, it's been probably 3 hours.
But yes, you're probably right. And we kept saying, we got to wait for there's a mic. We need a mic. We've got to get a mic.
I want to talk about this, but not right now. So all I was sharing with when brand new people come in is that I want them to comprehend that I'm speaking to their souls.
Right.
And that their soul's journey is what's important to me. And if she's got 30 pounds on her butt, or she's diabetic and she's going to lose her leg or whatever, that's easy. Those things are so easy. I've got people that find me that have, stage 4 cancer, and they've been literally sent off to die. And those people come to me and they're scared, they're lonely, they're desperate. And my message to them is the same as it is to you.
Right.
You are powerful. You're beautiful. Our bodies, these beautiful avatars that we have, they're self-regulating, they're self-healing. We don't need to inject ourselves with poisons. We don't need to irradiate ourselves. What we need to do is live cleanly. What I do teach my people is, when we talk about nutrition and toxicity and things like that, we introduce our own toxicity to ourselves. Like we literally we permit things to happen. So the third thing I share with people is that they're the boss. Like they're the queen or the king.
Sovereign.
They're the sovereigns. And I sometimes use the captain. Like you're the captain of the ship.
Yeah.
But I'm a really, 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 really good first officer. And so if you're really, really, really good first officer, taps you on the shoulder and says, Captain, you're the boss, but have you considered this?
Yes.
You probably should think about it, right? So I just share that because I don't look at people's avatars. I think that their avatars, their bodies, are very much a reflection of how they view themselves.
Right.
And what they're...
Yes.
When
their
they look at
internal
themselves.
mechanisms.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And, I think of things like people who are, say, anorexic or bulimic. And what's happening is that when they look in a mirror, they see something different than is actual.
Or they look in a mirror and they want to be something different.
Right. So there's this conflict, this conflict.
No self-acceptance.
So we have to speak to the soul. And what I was going to share is that when I get into the conversation about who are you and why are you here, and they realize that they're in a place. I forgot to mention the third thing I tell people is that I'm ordained. I'm actually ordained in divinity, but also holistic natural healing. And what that means is that whatever you share with me stays here. There's no judgment. There's no conversation over a glass of wine with my spouse. It wouldn't even come up in this show. It doesn't come up. It's as if you're permitted, a number of people that once they comprehend that they're in a position where there's somebody sitting in front of them that can love them without condition, no matter what. And I tell them, no matter what you tell me, I will never love you any less. See, that's the message we all wanted from our parents.
Right.
That's the message we wanted from our whole support structure growing up. Sarah, no matter what you do, no matter what you say, I love you unconditionally. There's nothing you can do to change my love for you. And you want to hear that day after day after day after day. And we don't. We hear the opposite sometimes.
Do you think there's too much of a yearning to hear that we're great day after day? Because I would say that's something that you've got to tell yourself.
Oh, that's the transference. I agree. And what I share with them is, see, because when they come to me, they're very frail.
Yeah, I bet.
Their self-image is bad. They're afraid. So what I do is...
They're not dancing with darkness. They're fully submerged into it, aren't they?
And so one of the things they oftentimes cry, like within almost all of them. Like, in fact, right behind my chair, behind their chair, there's Kleenex box because it's like,
There's probably some relief associated with
it's
that.
unbelievable. And when I will actually stand up and go hug them, I'll say, "May I hug you?" And they're like crying and nodding. So I will hug them, but I do it for 20 seconds. Like, I put my left ear to their left ear and I give them a hug. I don't know if I've ever given you a 20-second hug. But
I don't know if I've ever let you.
all right.
I'm British. I don't get too near to people.
Well, the British, you ought to do this.
We hardly hug.
Well, we're going to hug
We'll shake
today.
hands from 6 feet distance.
No, I'm going to hug you today.
All right, let's do it.
But here's the thing. What I do is I give a hug. And what I experience is, like, when I hug them, it's usually like 1 potato, 2 potato, and they're going to try to release. Because that's all they ever do.
So you're restraining them to some degree then?
Well, what I do is I say, I'm going to give you a 20-second hug.
Right,
I'm
okay.
telling them.
Yeah.
And then I give them a 2-second hug and they release. And I'm like, no, not yet. And what I'm doing is I'm literally putting my heart on top of their heart because it's my left ear to their left ear. And I'm hugging them. And what I'm visualizing when I hug them is I visualize them as a baby just an infant, a little baby. And I visualize the amplification of the mother, generations of mothers, all the way through decades and decades and decades. I visualize that so that when I embrace them, I'm channeling those millennia of mothers that loved their posterity into that moment. So when I
didn't.
Yeah. Or couldn't.
Or were helpless themselves.
So what I want to do is communicate that infinite love,
the ancestral
maternal love
yeah,
into a hug. And I'm putting my heart on theirs. And that heart-to-heart connection, I feel them melt, literally. So they'll try to release again after about 10 seconds.
God, if someone was strained me like that, I'd put them in a fucking chokehold. I think it would be too much for me.
Yeah, you wouldn't be able to.
But you've said...
Except for you couldn't do that with me.
No, I could with you. I wouldn't even try with you.
But what I find is by the 20 seconds, they have literally...
So if they resist at some point towards the 20, they're melting after, if there's any resistance.
Well, yeah, because what happens is they literally, like when you envelop them in that love, and they know it's not like sexual or perverted or anything. It's just pure maternal love. Like,
divine.
I've got you.
Yeah.
And sometimes I'll say that.
Yeah.
I'll actually whisper to them, I've got you.
Yeah, that's nice.
And that's what they need.
So you're basically in this wrapping around them. You're imparting your energy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And
they probably need it because they are, out of control in their lives. So you're stabilizing them to some degree.
And it doesn't matter if it's a guy or a girl.
Right.
It doesn't matter. I always ask permission, and they nod yes.
Yeah.
But the experience is just stunning, and they thank me. And they leave here a different person.
Yes, when we talked about Charlene right at the beginning. She met you, she came here. She called me when she got home and she couldn't believe how elevated she felt when she was driving away from here.
Sadly, I can't speak to whether or not that happened.
Well, I'm telling you.
If she shared that with you, then you can.
Yeah.
But I can't comment one way or the other.
Yeah, that's fine. But that's how she felt around you.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
And the fact that she shared that with you is beautiful too. Thanks for that. So I'm going to bounce it back to you because I want to find out, again, I try to be very pragmatic. We've got people listening to this and they've got real world challenges.
Gosh. Yes.
Okay. So I want to ask the question, what would you, I come from a family who has problems with alcohol, like my aunts, my uncles, my grandparents,
Interesting, because me too, yeah.
Okay, so let's just have this conversation, whether it's alcohol or drugs or...
could be shopping, it could be gambling.
It could be any sort of
sex,
compulsive type of thing,
compulsive
sex
behavior.
Or gambling, like you said. So, but why don't you walk me through this? Like, I hear what you're saying about we create our reality, right? And that we're gods and we can... influence.
We're an aspect of God in a very, very limited environment. But yes, I would say we're God's sense receptors.
So I'm going to ask you to elaborate on that. But so how does this work for somebody that's maybe a teenage child of one or both parents arguing. There's money issues. There's substance abuse. You don't want to go to school because school is living hell. You don't want to go home because home is living hell. Like, how does a soul decode that? How does that soul decode that? How do they navigate that?
For me, and I can only speak subjectively, I wasn't aware that I had a soul, and I had no idea that the soul was driving my train. All I could do was accept my reality and just deal with all the bullshit that my parents put upon me. I had no way of decoding that. I had no way of assimilating that. But I also had no comparison. That was my life. Just going around, moving house, watching my mum fall in and out of relationships. We had domestic abuse, alcohol. I didn't have, and I'm so fortunate, I wasn't sexually abused, but I think I've experienced any other type of pain that a child would feel. I've actually been molested mildly, and we can talk about that when we get deeper into the conversations, but nothing that I couldn't return from. But there was no, as a child, you're just forced to live in the reality that your parents create for you. So when I was 16, 17, I was able to emancipate myself, and I moved out from anyone that could tell me what to do, and it was with my brother. And then I started the process of trying to make sense of the world. But I had no one tell me or give me any idea about what reality could look like. I was born in England. My mother was an atheist, my father a Roman Catholic. He didn't say much about religion. I went to church a lot because I was bored and I used it to entertain myself, not because I could relate to it at all. So there was no me fixing me at all because I didn't know what reality was. I had thoughts uploaded into my mind. I would say things that came into my head. I wasn't a wise young soul, and I just don't think... I mean, I'm sure there are wise young souls. I have experiences with my mind that we can talk about that might have been wise, but I was just pulled into the vortex of everyone around me. Now, from my position, looking back, that was all supposed to happen, and it strengthened me. But I wasn't one of these children that thought, I'm going to understand what reality is and I'm going to work out what's going on in my head. That didn't happen until I was 26, until I had my first child. So as a child, I was feral.
What does that mean?
Wild. Feral,
okay.
Just wild. I had no regulation of my own thoughts, didn't understand what God was, my mum was, reality. It was all just a crapshoot to me. And the development didn't begin till I was in my mid-20s.
So if I had a guest in the room that had experienced, I pulled that kind of out of the hat, the idea that there's a child with dysfunctional parents. But if that person was in the room today and we included that person, a boy or girl, doesn't matter, teenager, what could you share with them? How would you take your experiences and what would you share with them to help them decode their situation?
The first thing I would tell them is that you are entirely responsible for your reality, and your reality will shape out given the quality of your thinking.
So let me interrupt you, not to be, can we make that more clear? Because I know that if you would have told me that when I was 13, I don't cuss. I mean, you do all the cussing for me.
I do.
You do all the cussing for me. But I don't cuss. But
I've never heard you cuss. I'm going to get one out of you one day.
Well, I think Robin's probably only heard me cuss we've been married 29 years, I think maybe 29 times.
Oh my goodness, that's not much at all. No, that happened to me in a day.
It's not going to happen. But you know, as a teenager, I would have looked. If you would have said that to me, I would have said, I would have felt like you're blaming me.
Okay, so
I would have felt like you're blaming me because.
You would have seen that as too heavy.
Because you know, as a teenager, your brain isn't wired like Sarah Tirri is right now. Right. But so if you say, well, you're responsible for your reality, I would look at that and think, well, you're blaming me for my stuff. I didn't do this because I've been subject to that blame game. When I was a child, and I was raised in the Catholic Church, but it was the Byzantine Catholic Church. I'm Ukrainian Catholic. I was raised Ukrainian Catholic. But I remember sitting there and my mom and grandmom saying, you know, there's Jesus on the cross and there's suffering, and you know, you look and he's bleeding and he's got the crown with thorns, and whenever you sin, which I don't know what sin is, right? I'm just a kid. Whenever you don't behave yourself or you sin, his cross gets heavier, he bleeds more, his pain is worse. Now that's a lot to unpack. So I was like, and we'll talk about that another time, but as a child, it's no wonder I felt worthless and pitiful.
I agree.
Because I'm looking at this Jesus character and saying...
And feeling guilty, because
like,
now he's taking all your burdens.
Sorry.
I know.
I'm doing the best I can at 5, 6 years old.
Yeah.
I'm doing the best I can. I'm sorry. I don't want you to hurt.
I don't want you to be my scapegoat.
I don't want you to hurt, because I don't know you.
I know. That's a hell of a burden.
But when you say something like you're creating your own reality
well, that would be the first thing that I would say.
But so, do you think that would be well received by
a
12-year-old?
I wouldn't just say. Are you talking to a 12-year-old? I wouldn't just say you're creating your reality.
Okay, yeah.
I would have 30 minutes with them at least, right? But and the second thing I would say is that you've got to understand that you're thinking. You've got to understand and get outside your thoughts. And I would encourage them to write down, and I do this in my journal, write down what you're thinking. You need to be from the perspective of the observer. If someone had told me that at age 12, I would have understood, because I'd had experiences where I'd come out of ego-driven thinking and I'd come into awareness. And awareness is just being aware, but there's no thoughts getting uploaded in your head. And I think young children can understand that as a concept, that you've got to be aware that you're thinking, and they can get very dark. Like you say, you've danced with darkness. I've had very, very bleak thoughts, and I would have loved someone to tell me at age 12, you've got to watch these thoughts. You've got to be aware of your thoughts. They're not you. You're here. You're observing them. And if you can get a child to understand that position, they're going to be more inclined to take control of what they're thinking about, rather than just having a thought upload in their head. And that's why I would say initially, you're responsible for creating your reality, not with any religious iconography. How do we say that word? Iconography.
Iconographic? Yeah.
Yeah,
okay.
I can never say it.
Well, you did a great job.
Iconography. See, I can't say it. You think I've been drinking? I'll have to try and get it right. It'll pop into my mind. But there's no religion. Wouldn't be no religion around what I would say to a child. I wouldn't even involve God. I would say, you're creating your reality and your mind's doing it. Let's try and understand the workings of your mind. And it's okay to have dark thoughts. No one's punishing you for that. But if you can get a child to be the observer and see that they're the observer and the participant in their life, that was what I would tell a 12-year-old. And I would start having them take an inspection of their own mind with no religious iconography going on whatsoever.
Okay, that's fair. So you made reference to the journal. You said you have a journal, but I also know that you wrote a book or something. I forget the exact title of it, but...
The Mirror World is the journal, and this tells us to inspect our mind.
Okay, so tell me, how does the Mirror Journal work? Like, what is its function? I know I read, it was the first thing I looked through. You gave it to me to look over. I thought it was very useful. Like, for somebody who has no experience, zero experience with these ideas of myself looking at myself.
Yes.
Which is what a mirror journal is, right?
Exactly.
Just trying to help them interpret the world around them. Tell me, what is the mirror world as a tool, as a device, and how would you hope that changes people's lives for the better?
Well, the Mirror World is a very easy read. It's a large journal. It's A4 size, and it takes about 40 minutes to read it from start to end. And it's in very, very large font. On the left is me talking you through how to inspect your mind. And on the right is a lined page. I've got it in front of me. So on the right, I have at the top, write down your thoughts, catalogue the mess, be brave, go ahead, transform. Because a lot of my life, my thinking was very, very messy, but I just thought my thoughts were private. I could look you in the face, have a load of thoughts, and I was trained as a flight attendant to be bubbly and lively, but you wouldn't know that the thoughts in my head that I had, and I just thought they were private and were meaningless, but they're not, because the thoughts cause your vibration, and your outer reality will correspond, and that's what I would get a 12-year-old child to understand. Forget religion. It doesn't doesn't matter what religion you're involved in. And the mirror world isn't about a religion at all. It's about the workings of the mind. Know yourself. In order to do that, you've got to pull back to awareness. And in the mirror world, I walk the reader through the techniques and steps to become aware that you're awareness and become aware that you're the player of, and I liken this reality to a virtual reality game. And I start off with that as the premise of the book. We're in a virtual reality game, in a matrix, and we're controlling it.
So is your vision for the mirror world for it to be a book that you read like a novel, or is it something that they actually interact with? Like, do you want them to like read a page and then write their, like,
yes,
because you have a blank page in there. It's the idea that they read one page, write it, and then maybe do another page the next day?
I would say do what you want with it. I mean, you could actually pick up random pages. I mean, you could read this in a non-sequitur way, and it still makes you could
totally out of order.
Yeah, because it wouldn't really matter. I would suggest that you read the whole thing from start to finish, and then the second time you go through it, because it's only 40 minutes, that's when you can start cataloguing the mess.
Fair.
Because you'll understand the premise of the book.
Awesome. Sarah, this has been an amazing first episode.
I know.
And so I want to close this out, and then we're going to have another episode.
I can't wait. This has been wonderful.
Tell me any closing thoughts you might have with our first ever episode together. And
well, I'm just getting to know you. Like you said, we've only spent total time, which is a pilot. Don't you say total time in your logbook?
Total time.
Time. So the total time.
The total time.
Total time. Was a few hours, right. And I'm getting to know you, and everyone's on the journey with us, and I hope everyone's inspired. And if you have any questions, there's going to be a mechanism for you to be able to write your questions or call us, and so I look forward to doing that. And I mean, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of episodes, and I'm all in, and I've had a lovely time.
I'm so excited, and thank you for this first, our inaugural podcast. This is just the start of something special. This has been so much fun. I want to, next time we meet, I'd like you to come up with maybe 3 questions that you think will knock me off balance.
Oh, don't even get me started. I love a challenge like that.
But I'm going to do the same for you.
I look forward to it.
But I just want to give people something to look forward to for our next episode. And then moving forward, what would you like people to look forward to from future episodes of Soul Decode?
I think just 2 women chatting about life, love, hardship, God, the nature of this reality. I'd like to talk about personal experiences and give anecdotes, ask you a few about that. But I feel like this is a chatty podcast talking about life, and life is so complicated, so amazing that that would just be the theme, and wherever that takes us. I'm a writer. I can go anywhere in my head. So,
well, you're delightful too. Okay, we're going to wrap it up. Thank you again, Sarah. Thanks for coming out to the Treehouse, and we'll see you next week.
Yeah,
okay,
love it.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Soul Decodes, a feature presentation, airs every Friday on the Earth Angel Media Network. This episode of Soul Decodes is sponsored and produced by Pure. Optimize your life by taking your health to the next level. Listen now to learn how Pure will make your world better.
Pure is an American-based distribution system of online portals that give discounted access to clean, potent, natural, and ethically sourced healthy solutions for fat loss, muscle gain, immaculate skincare, immune system support, whole body cleanse, physiological balance, and performance support for athletes of all ages. Pure handpicks the best products and nutrients from world-class companies, always adding to their quickly growing wellness lineup that now includes Korean skincare, medical-grade nutraceuticals listed as pharmaceutical alternatives in the physician's desk reference, and healthy coffee that rivals the world's best, but for only about $1 per cup. Soul Decodes listeners looking for vitality, youth, beauty, and better health can get 25% off retail by visiting livepure.com/Sarah Tirri and signing up for free as a preferred customer. If you are a content creator, influencer, or home-based entrepreneur looking for worldwide cash flows from the emerging gig economy, Pure's state-of-the-industry brand partner affiliate program can bring you up to 7 different payment vectors as bonuses. As a content creator aligned with Live Pure and Earth Angel Media, you will enjoy massive co-marketing benefits, including a cutting-edge website that is personally branded to you or to your business. Sign up as a brand partner at livepure.com/Sarah Tirri. Or drop us a note at connect@earthangelproject.com to get more information.
Wow.